Alright, welcome to Stranded Alien Dawn. I'm trying something new here. The time grind in this game can be pretty heavy for recording and editing. So I'm going to record and voice over, which is something new to me. But before we really get started here, I'd like to ask you to subscribe if you haven't already. I'm trying to get the channel to 1,000 subs, as that would be a really cool milestone, and I promise to do something fun to celebrate it. So Stranded Alien Dawn is pretty popular at the moment, and for good reason, I think. It's a pretty fun looking game, and it's a very nice interface as well. So let's get into this. Starting a new game, the planet and biome settings at the moment are pretty limited. There's only one real option there. However, the difficulty settings give you various amounts of starting resources with which to start off with, obviously. Next up, we get to choose our crew. Very much like in Surviving Mars, your crew has traits and skills. These traits can be positive or negative and will affect their performance and efficiency, as well as their social interaction with other crew. I've chosen a mixture of crew with good traits and high key skills, namely cooking, farming, healing, construction, crafting, and intellect. The crew can also have modifiers on skills. The interested modifier allows the crew member to gain experience in that skill faster. Indifferent gains at a slower pace, and incapable, well, they just can't do that skill at all. My first crew member is Evelyn. She has a high cooking skill and an interest in cooking, as well as good combat and farming. This will make her the main cook of the crew, as well as a secondary farmer. Next is Katina, with a high healing and a good intellect, but an interest in farming that makes her ideal to be our farmer and healer. Our first man on the crew is Kin, with a high combat skill and an interest in it as well. He's also interested in crafting. This makes him ideal to craft or defend the settlement. Lastly, we have Simon with a high intellect that will make him good at research, but also interested in construction and crafting. He will be our main researcher and builder, but he'll also be helping to craft. With our crew assembled, let's get the game started. Okay, a lot is happening in these first few moments. Our crew is shook up by the crash and debris raining down. Our first priorities will be shelter and scavenging what we can from the wrecks. We seem to have a good amount of resources around here to get started with. First, we'll want to get shelter and sleeping areas built. Simon, being the only one not drafted due to his immediate breakdown after the crash, has already gotten to work. While the crew start to set up the shelters, I'll queue up the research and start laying down the sleeping places and storage. Bulk construction material stores I like to put on the outside, and then exclude from holding food. Interior storage is for food and items. and excludes construction materials. Giving the crew somewhere to sit and eat will help improve their mood. And then we need to give them a fireplace to cook basic meals. As new things are discovered, they'll be able to unlock new tech or more research. Once shelter, beds and storage is taken care of, we need to look at longer term survival. We start with equipping any weapons we have, setting up crafting and research as well as farming of food and non-food resources. As mentioned previously, research will unlock new tech and new research to give our crew more equipment and tools to survive. To that end, researching weapon crafting and tailoring is a priority, with a defense against nature and lightning strikes after that. Periodic community events are good for morale and they mark key milestones, like surviving the crash. Letting your crew get together and spend some time purely on downtime all at the same time is advised for these events. Have a look at crafting of items. Crafting items comes in 3 options. Number of times crafted, which means crafting this item X amount of times. Crafted until, craft up to this amount, and then replace any that get used. So that keeps a constant supply of very important items or materials forever. Craft this as long as we have the materials to make this item. I haven't personally used this option yet, but I think that coming later down the line this will become useful. Having collected our first local flora, edible flora, we've got the basic ingredients. We can now start cooking meals and stop living off the emergency rations. The better meals you can make, the happier the crew will be, because the meals give a happiness buff. To that end, food farms and a variety of food will be very important for your survivors and their happiness. There's a big problem with food crops and the farming of those crops, and that is that they are going to attract the local animals, the foragers and herbivores. You'll need to fence them off and defend them. A basic fence and basic animal traps are on the outside of that is good enough to slow most animals down and allow you to deal with them directly. However, you won't need to protect non-food crops like trees and bushes, as the animals won't worry about that. Skin bark plant is a great resource of plant leather, which is a great early resource. It helps with making replacement clothing and warm clothing. and the crew will need warm clothing for winter. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. So getting a melee weapon is a must for all crew, and building ranged weapons for everyone will reduce the amount of close-quartered combat that will be required. And speaking of getting ahead of myself, activities menu. We'll be getting to the activities system later. At the moment, this early in the game, there's just too much to do to be micromanaging the crew's priorities. We're also not going to mess with the basic schedule either. Not at this stage at least. Wild growing trees and bushes do seem to be finite. So planting tree and bush farms early on will mean less travel later when local resources are depleted. As you can imagine, the time taken to walk backwards and forwards from a faraway stand of trees or bushes is going to eat into crafting time and construction time. Okay, so we've unlocked tailoring now. This means that we can start producing replacement gear and winter gear. It's only summer now, but you don't want to wait until winter to be making warm clothes. Your crew are going to get cold and they can suffer hypothermia and die. Often at this early part of the game, giving manual commands to crew is essential to get certain things done when they need to. Crew will often stop halfway through doing something to go and eat or sleep or just take a rest and wander. And this can often be detrimental to the entire crew as something essential hasn't been done in time. Speaking of commanding the crew, we have a pack of aggressive animals that have appeared. As my crew is fully armed with both melee and ranged weapons, we will take the fight to them rather than waiting for them to attack our base. There are two phases to this. The notification of aggressive animals lets us see where they are and where they're coming from. If we wait, these animals will attack the base, and when they do so, they'll come at us all at once. We can command our crew by selecting the draft option. Once drafted, you'll see the green circles around the crew now. This is the range of their ranged weapons. The bigger circles are for the bows and the smaller are for the laser pistols. What we'll do is we'll use that choke point in the rock formation to attack the bugs. As you can see, that the bugs are already dying before we can get to attack them. Some animals will get aggroed by the aggressive creatures and attack. This works in our favor. By attacking the creatures one at a time, we hold the numbers advantage. However, sometimes nearby creatures will also aggro. Even though the birds were not our original enemy, they are aggroed inside firing range, and as such they will get attacked. As you can see, the crew is now mostly in hand-to-hand combat, using their melee weapons, and that is why the melee weapons were so important. However, now they are taking injuries. You can see this by the red bar at the bottom of their portrait. If that red bar depletes completely, the crew member will die. So be careful and don't be afraid to run away if you need to. You can often outrun most animals if you're not too injured. So don't hang around for too long in a bad situation. With the fight over, you can now undraft the crew and instruct them to heal themselves. You could let them go and wait for treatment, in which case they'll go and lie on a bed and wait for the quote-unquote healer of the crew to get to them. However, this relies on that healer actually attending to the injured crew members and not going to sleep while someone bleeds out. And that can happen, unfortunately. With the healing out of the way, we can now harvest the dead insects and birds for meat. This will give us a new recipe option. Alright, now we have the crafting bench made and we can queue up clothing for winter. We also now can get a lightning rod down to protect the nearby structures. The rod has other uses later on as well, but we'll get to that. We've unlocked metal refinement and can build a furnace to smelt the scrap down into more useful metals. Next up, we need to complete the research of body armor, as the animal attacks will keep on coming periodically and they will get stronger and stronger over time. We also need to unlock construction, as we'll need to build better shelter before winter. With regards to the shelter, I'm looking at this nearby flat area to build a house that we can use for the crew to keep warm in during winter. Well, there we go. That's it for this first episode. I hope this turned out okay, though I expect that the format will need some work. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next episode of Stranded Alien Dawn. Take care, folks.